Hello, my name is Timothy Valverde, and welcome to the 1% podcast. It's where I talk about stepping out of mediocrity and stepping into what I think are God's promises for you and for your life. And it happens 1% at a time, and it's a long journey that you and I should enjoy the progress with. So, thank you so much for being here. I want to talk about three things I'm learning on this journey that I'm on. If you don't know me, I'm on it. My wife and I and my family are on a very difficult journey with the health of my son. But before I get into that and I'll progress into that, I want to challenge you with a few things. Number one, I want to tell you there is a price to pay for another level. We hear that term all the time, like, let's go to another level, whether it's in your health, your physical, at work. I like to focus on spiritual things, right? That's a big part of my heart. That we always hear that. Let's go deeper. Let's go to another level. Well, that sounds great until you're on your way there. Until God says, okay, I'm going to take you to another level. And while he's taking you to another level, he uses the avenue and the method. That is not easy when God says, to get you from here to there, I'm going to choose something and I'm going to use this as the engine to take you to another level. So how do you respond when God gives you a difficult battle and it's meant to propel you to a new place and to a new season? Because I believe that different levels require different sacrifices. I believe that different levels require a different degree of pain. I believe that different levels are for everyone, but they are not for everyone. I believe different levels are not for the weak. Now, if I had more time, or maybe in another podcast, I'll talk about that. They're not for the weak. Why? Because the minute you start feeling yourself, right, pushing to another level, pushing to a new journey of these three things I'm going to talk about, you're going to start to feel certain tension. You're going to start to feel different battles, different mindsets, different struggles that are going to want to make you regress to the default of your childhood, of how you were upbringing, or what feels more safe and more comfortable. So it takes a certain level of strength to get to a new level with God. And look, you can grab these principles and I believe you can apply them everywhere and anywhere. But if you and I would apply them spiritually, that would be my heart today. I believe different levels really expose what is inside of you. When God is calling me or pushing us to different places, I'm trying not to sound so churchy with it, because these words like different levels or a new season, those words are so churchy. It's just what I grew up with. But when you're faced with something that is difficult, that is out of your control, that God is permitting, I believe it exposes what's inside of you. The type of man or the type of woman that you are comes out. The way you handle things, the way you don't handle things, the way you treat things, the way you don't treat things. It's absolutely 100% exposed when you're on this journey for progression and to become part of what I believe is the 1%. So taking care of these things is very, very important. I believe different levels, when God is taking you to those things, I think it's so powerful spiritually, but it's painful. And what gives me authority here today to talk about this? Well, the pain that God is allowing in our lives. And I put something out in a reel that I recorded on the day of this recording. And I said something. I said, you are tougher than you think you are. And let's say you stop watching this podcast or listening to this podcast right now. I want to tell you that you're tougher than you think you are. You're stronger than you think you are. You really are. Some of the battles or some of the things that have you down or have you regressing or have you looking back or wanting to give up, those are just preparation for something bigger. I've heard so many preachers say that, but I am sitting here today as a testimony to tell you. Now I'm preaching, Paul, now I'm starting to preach. I'm here telling you as a testimony that some of these things that you're facing with right now are literally stepping stones to something bigger. And I'm going to tell you a little bit why more. So everybody goes through pain. Every single person goes through pain. You go through pain, I go through pain. And it's how you and I respond to that pain that matters. That's what really matters. Right now, my wife and I are dealing, and my family and all friends and family of my church and colleagues, we're all dealing with a certain level of pain with what's going on with my son, Hunt. And when you're dealt with pain, when you're given that pain, you can do a few things. One, you can blame, right? You can blame God, you can blame other people, you can blame circumstances, childhood. You can run, right? You just run away, give up, stop. I see a lot of people doing that when pain comes and difficult things come, they run, they regress, they run to work or they run to vices and things like that. Or you can fight, or you can make excuses. And many times as you're on a journey to progression, you will not know what you're going to do until it happens. And hopefully I am shining some type of light or some type of inspiration in your life to say, hey, when it happens, because it's going to happen. If you are looking and, just the fact that you're listening to this tells me that you want to progress in some way. If you're looking to grow or progress in some way, especially with the things of God, then pain will come. And I hope that when it's coming or when it comes in a year from now or a month from now, whatever, that you remember these words. You will not know how you'll react until it happens. And my desire for you is that you will fight, that you'll get up, put your hands up and fight. My desire for you, which what I'm trying to do is I'm being exposed, the weaknesses that I have, the feelings, the fears that I have are being exposed with the news that we received. And I'm trying to fix them and work on them in real time to be really the man that God has called me to be. So here's the biblical foundation. Jesus told Peter, he said, Satan has asked for you. Okay, this is in Luke 22. He wants to sift you as wheat. Sifting is a process of separation, right? They would sift the wheat, they would lift it or they would smash it, and the wheat would separate from the chaff, right? And Jesus tells Peter, Satan wants you, he's asked for you. He wants to separate you. He wants to destroy you, is essentially what Jesus is telling Peter. And I love that Satan had to ask permission from the Lord to have access to Peter. And that's my good news today, is that Satan has to ask permission. So with what we're going through, Satan has to ask permission. I don't think it's Satan that got my son sick or allowed this new journey to happen. I'm not going to blame the devil for everything. I believe that's sensational. I don't want to do that. I don't believe that. I believe God allowed it to happen. But with that, there still comes some really, really deep pain. On Monday, my son Hunt begins 6 months of chemotherapy treatment once again. We were sitting here last Monday, which would have been February 26th of 2024. It was just a beautiful, beautiful Monday afternoon. As a matter of fact, we were just celebrating because I had popped in Hunt's prosthetic eye. Now, if that's not a big deal to you, it's a big deal to me, because I personally did not enjoy or did not like looking at the space where my son's eye used to be. For me, it just seems really unnatural. I felt very nervous. I don't know why. I'm not good with blood and all those things. And I remember that I said, Hunt, I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to figure this thing out. Because my wife too struggles with that a little bit. She's strong, but she struggles with that. And so I went upstairs and Hunt and I talked about it and we figured something out and I promised him the world. And I popped his prosthetic eye in. And I was happy. We were excited. I even put it in one of my stories like, hey, look, I popped in his prosthetic eye. I think the kids and I were playing Uno when I was sitting right here in my office and my wife texted me. I guess I didn't hear my phone ringing and I finally heard it and I came over and I had 4 or 5 missed calls from her and she said, answer. And I could tell that something was wrong, right? So again, we are doing just fine on this Monday, and I could tell something was wrong. So I called her, and she says, I'm going to loop you in with Dr. Barry. And as I'm sitting here, Paul and I were just talking. Paul Devia and I were just talking, and he has a song that starts with a doctor calling a patient saying, "Hey, it's not good," and that's exactly what happened. Our Dr. Barry says, "Hey, are you driving? Pull over. And if you're standing, sit down." And she wasn't dramatic or sensational. She was extremely professional. We have a fantastic relationship with her. And she said, we ran more tests on the eye and this tumor, this disease is trying to escape, or it has escaped. And we are recommending chemotherapy immediately to not allow this disease to escape or run rampant in his body. So when she told us that, right away you have just questions. What's going to happen? Why? I could hear my wife crying. She's strong, but she was crying. I began to cry, but I hid the tears pretty well. It literally felt that somebody kicked you in the stomach. And it was the only word that I can use to describe it, which you may hear me say a lot if you follow this content at all, um, it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. So on podcast 007, right? And by the way, I had so many things planned for this podcast. Hunt was going to be my guest. I was going to wear a suit. I'm a huge James Bond fan. And there was going to be so many things that we're going to do today that just God changed the plan on. So of the three things I'm talking about, number one is there's a price to pay for another level. Number two, it goes from bad to worse. Why bad to worse? Because on this journey, there's unexpected things that happen. 3 weeks ago, on February 8th, 2024, I thought it was the absolute worst. We were in Children's Hospital all day, out in Los Angeles, and my son had an enucleation, which means a removal of his right eye. That alone was very, very difficult. That process was already extremely difficult, but the fact that it was filled with disease made it even more difficult. He had his eye removed, and the surgery went well, but the aftermath of the surgery has been difficult. Hunt has become very empathetic to the missing body part, and a counselor told us that's going to happen because something's missing and his body is responding to it. Having to work now with a prosthetic eye, go make appointments to have a prosthetic eye done, and just balancing that has been extremely difficult for Sonia and I. And I thought that was the worst. I remember driving home and just all quiet and just pressed and just frustrated and thinking, okay, this is the worst. And now the worst is over, right? Okay, so the enucleation's out, the cancer's out, it's now over. Although my son still battles with stage 4 in his right eye, but thank God it's asleep and dormant. So, okay, we're not worried about that battle just yet. But thinking, okay, the eye's gone. Okay, now we just have to deal with the prosthetic thing, adjust to life, adjust to all those things that come, and we'll be okay. Like, this is the worst it's going to get. And then no, that's not the case. It got worse. And in my opinion, it got much worse. When this happened a few years ago, and by the way, we're working on a documentary that's going to be released here in 4 chapters in the next few weeks. I think you're going to enjoy this. And it really tells a story of Hunt and in a little bit more depth. But I thought the enucleation was the absolute worst, and it was not. If I'm being completely honest with you, now thinking through Hunt's eye removal, to me, it's in the past. It's not even significant anymore. It's not even a battle that I'm worried about anymore. It's now become, okay, that's fine. We're going to make it. We're going to get through that. Now having him go through chemotherapy, putting that poison in his body, how he's going to respond, his hair being lost again, his teeth being broken, is his body going to be able to handle it? Now that's the new worry. Is this chemo going to kill any type of lingering disease in his body? That becomes my new worry. Returning to the Bible scripture, Peter was not completely crushed by Satan because of the prayer of Jesus. If you look at Luke 22, Jesus gave him access, but not totally. Why? Because the Bible says that Jesus prayed for him. And I want to take a moment to tell you that when it goes from bad to worse, prayer is absolutely key. Sonia and I are so grateful for all the prayers that we received, all the messages that we received, all the DMs that we received. It's hundreds, if not thousands of them. And my friends, it has been such a huge blessing to us, and it really has sustained us. I can say this wholeheartedly, that the prayers of the saints are sustaining us and keeping us. So please do not stop praying. And when you go through something, please receive and accept prayers from others and step into prayer. Because as you go from bad to worse on this journey, it's what's going to keep you from getting crushed. Now, if you're a believer, we know we should pray, but many times we don't pray. And prayer is the only thing that kept Peter from getting crushed and destroyed from Satan. Because Jesus says, yeah, you're not getting crushed because I have prayed for you. And that is something very, very powerful. So before I move on, just if you've prayed for us, if you've sent us a message, Thank you. If I've responded or not, forgive me. But thank you so much. We see it and we appreciate it all. So it's really the prayers that keep us from failing. And what did Jesus say? He says, I have prayed that your faith fail not. Perhaps you're sitting here watching this, listening to this, whatever, and your faith has you feel it failing. It's the prayers that'll keep you from your faith not failing. I use this scripture in talking to some of my brothers in ministry the other day. I said, brothers, pray for me that my faith fail not. And I am, I find myself to be a very strong man. I find myself to be, I think I'm an alpha male, right? I am an alpha male, actually. Like I am. Like I'm not, I don't think I am. I'm not arrogant, but I am. Don't get it twisted, right, Paul? Don't get it twisted. But I need prayers. It's, as things go from bad to worse, it's really the prayer. It's really the lifeline that I have. And looking back at 2018, I remember I tried to power through this. I tried to work and progress and not stop and not miss appointments and not take time off. As a matter of fact, I did not miss one Sunday in the year 2018. One Sunday, and my son went through 6 months of chemotherapy, and I actually used that as a badge of honor. And now I'm actually a little bit embarrassed by that. I'm going to handle this a little bit differently, and I'm going to rely on prayers as my lifeline. So as things go from bad to worse to you, prayer is going to be absolutely key. And number 3, the last point, if you're still following along, is sometimes it's not what you do that makes you a cut above, but what you don't do. Jesus says, I pray, Peter, that your faith fail not. There's going to be times in our life where we will falter and we'll wonder and we'll question. And I think that's okay. But what we can't have is our faith to fail. And as you're on this journey, you will question. Friends, I didn't question God. Believe me, I did not question God. I understand the hierarchy here. He's the almighty creator of the universe, and I am a speck of dust on this land. I understand the hierarchy. I understand. But I was absolutely devastated. I was perplexed. I was upset. I was confused. Here's how I'm describing it. It's like a big wave came and hit us. And we're just getting out of the water. We're catching our breath and we're just adapting and saying, okay, we didn't drown. And then a bigger wave comes and hits us. And this one just tumbles us. I'm not a surfer or anything like that. I'm not even a big beach guy, but it just tumbled us in the currents. And I've literally asked God, like, God, why didn't you give us more time? Why didn't you let us settle? Why didn't you let us breathe more? Why didn't you let us get over what just happened? Why did you give us something else? Like, why so big? Why do we have to pull him out of school? Why do we have to start these treatments? Why? Why does his little body have to suffer? Like, why? Why do you do this? And I found myself asking him that. But when I was asking God that, I was not asking for a response. I was just telling him. I was just having a moment of weakness, you can call it. Was my faith shaken? I don't know, maybe. I don't know. God is my rock. I trust him 100%. But I was just having a moment of honesty, like, God, why? Like, really? Like, I thought this was over. And God says, no, I'm gonna deepen you. And that's exactly what he's doing. He is now deepening Sonia and I, and my girls and Hunt. The kids will get it later, but Sonia and I, he's deepening our relationship with him. He's deepening our trust with him. He's making my prayer, my thoughts more profound. He's taking me to a place that I did not want to go to. I did not know how to get here. I did not know existed, but it's a place of trust and relying on him. It's a place of brokenness that you long for. You just don't know how to get there, and you don't want to get there. And that's where God has us right now. And it's not fun, but it'll pass. And I'm believing that we'll look back at this and be like, oh, that's it. Right? Like the enucleation of his eye was the worst for me. That was the bottom that was rock bottom for me. And now I'm like, oh, okay, that's it. All right, we got that. As a matter of fact, the last 2 days, Hunt's been home sick with me. He's been sick, not me. And he's been doing something. He's been going out of the house without his glasses, without his patch. Even right now, when Paul came, he didn't put his patch on. I looked at him like, "You gonna put your patch on?" He's like, "I said, okay." Because he was embarrassed or trying to hide his eye. And now he's like, "No, I'm not." And I'm like, "Hey, nobody will make fun of you, but if somebody does, then we'll punch him." No, I didn't say that. Well, I did say that, but that's not what we're gonna do. Now it's like, okay, that was a big worry of mine, and now it's not. And now chemo, and after 6 months, Lord willing, his body will react good, and he'll get healthy, and now it'll be behind us. And it's not the biggest thing anymore, even though right now it's the biggest thing. And that's the progress of life and the process of life. And that's motivated me to become the 1%. Now even more. I want to be stronger mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. I want to be a man of my word. I want to be a cut above. And for Hunt to have life, he had to have his eye removed. And yet there's still residue. And now he has to have another poison, just another punch. And that's the way it goes. A few more things. Last Easter, Hunt walked down in a cardboard testimony at our church, and he put cancer free on a cardboard, and everybody clapped. And there's a picture of me looking at him smiling with pain, but with happiness. And that cardboard testimony has to be rewritten now. And that's the process of life. Miracles. It's a word we use all the time in the church. Miracle is an altered state where God alters a natural state. Hunt is in need of a miracle, of a new eye. He's in need of that. And I may rub people the wrong way here, and I'm okay with that. But let me tell you something, what I think about a miracle. And this is coming from someone who needs an altered miracle, a visual miracle that I can see. Here's what I think. I think God has all the power to do any miracle. He can raise from the dead. He can extend limbs. God can do anything, just like he did in the Bible days. He can do it today. He has all the power and the will. In this circumstance, God has not chosen to do that. I think the greatest miracle that we're living today is that God comforts those who are afflicted. That God walks with me and Sonia and you. And in the worst phase in the season of our life, God walks with me. I believe that's the greatest miracle that God does today. If God gives him another eye, great. Do I think he is? No. Do I think he can? Yes. So him giving me strength to move on, and Sonia's strength to move on, and you strength to move on, well, that's the greatest miracle, that the God of heaven would come and walk with someone just like me and you. So let that be, hopefully, encouragement for you. Keep Sonia and I in prayers, and whatever you're going through, know that you can get through it. And if it goes from bad to worse, great. The battles that you think are real bad are just stepping stones for greater things. One day, Hunt's going to preach and do powerful things for the Lord, and he's going to have a wonderful, wonderful testimony. So I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you commenting. I've always heard podcasters, right? I'm new to this thing. I don't have like a big name or anything, but I've always heard podcasters say, like, share, subscribe. And I just would ignore that. But I'm asking you to like, share, subscribe. It really helps the algorithm and get this message out. If you want to shoot me a comment or DM, please do so. If you want to just pray for us, whether you know us or not, please do so. And enjoy the journey to the 1%, because for us, it's just getting started all over again. I'll share more information as it comes out. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.